Hey, this is Al Crespo. One of the most important yet often underreported activities of city and county government has to do with planning and zoning issues. Planning and zoning issues often have lasting and sometimes negative impact on communities, on neighborhoods, and on the folks that live in them. The city of Miami has had more than its fair share of bad decisions when it comes to planning and zoning. Now I want to talk to you about a specific proposal that's coming before the City Commission on a first reading at this week's City Commission meeting. The city manager is proposing that a 6 square block section of the Upper East Side here, from Northeast 2nd Avenue to Northeast 4th Avenue, bordered on the south by 17th Terrace, going up to 21st Terrace, again between 2nd and 4th Avenue, be rezoned from T624 to T636. That means that any new buildings built on these properties that are being rezoned, instead of being 24 floors tall, could go to 36 floors tall. That's a significant change. It means the buildings can be a third higher, a third larger in volume, a third larger in density, and it would also afford the developers the opportunity to make a third more money. So that's the way that development works. You try to get the biggest building you can build for the lowest cost you can build and make the most money you can get. Nothing wrong with that. What I want to talk to you about though is how this particular process with this particular deal is happening. And also the long-term impact of what it will mean for these taller buildings being built on these particular pieces of property. First off, if a developer who owned the piece of property I'm standing in front of, or the piece of property that's up there in the next block, were to try to get a change like this made on their own, they'd have to go out and hire lawyers, they'd have to go through all the regulatory process, they'd have to go before boards and groups of people and spend as much as, I've been told, $80,000 to $100,000 just to get their proposal before the City Commission. So the fact that the city manager is proposing this to the City Commission is a big gift for whoever the developers are that own these particular pieces of property. That's $80,000 to $100,000 per project that they're not going to have to pay for. Now, this is Commissioner Sarnoff's district, and nothing goes on in Commissioner Sarnoff's district without his okay. And because he's the chairman of the City Commission, nothing gets on the agenda of the City Commission without his okay. So we've got to assume that he's okay with this deal. More importantly, we got to assume that he's behind the deal. That one of his developer friends went to him and said, hey, I want to do this. And Mark said, well, I don't have a problem with you doing it. Let me help you. Let me save you money. We'll have the city manager introduce this proposal rather than requiring you to go out and hire lawyers to do it. That's the way inside deals get made in the city of Miami. Of course, that's the way inside deals get made around the country. That's the way the real world works. But most people aren't aware of that. Most people don't understand how this process really works. And more importantly, most people don't also understand that the reason for the decision to try to get all this property rezoned like this is because a few years back, a lot of people went through a lot of time and effort to get a new master zoning code put in place in the city of Miami to try to rein in some of the development and try to have it done on a more systematic, more organized way. So the proposal that's going before the City Commission, besides requesting that these properties be rezoned from T24 to T36, also says that the reason for this was as a result of a biannual review of the Miami 21 Master Code, and it was found that this was something that needed to be done. Well, you know, like so much other stuff in the city of Miami, that's bullshit. This is a little deal done for a few pieces of property, done specifically to allow these folks to get the property rezoned without having to go in their pocket to rezone the property. And you can bet that after it's all said and done, that we'll find out that it was one of Commissioner Sarnoff's biggest and best pals who turns out to be the developer who plans on building a big building on one or two of these properties. And in fact, this property and the property next to it can accommodate more than just one 36-story building. Excuse me. You could see 2 towers here, or 3 towers. And I think you might even be able to see 4 towers on each one of these pieces of property. Now 4 towers means that you're not talking about a 36-story building, you're talking about a 72-story building, or as much as a 144-story building if you stack all these towers up together. That's a sizable difference and a sizable change in the amount of density for this area. You have to appreciate that I'm standing about 200 feet from the north wall of the Omni Center. The Omni Center is a piece of property that was bought by the Genting casino folks. That's those people from Singapore that want to build a big casino over here on the Miami Herald property. So the Genting folks not only bought the Omni Center and the Miami Herald property and the Biscayne shops on Biscayne Boulevard, but they've also bought other pieces of property on the other side of Biscayne Boulevard, and supposedly they've spent approximately $500 million, $500 million on property in the last few years in this part of Miami. Now, if you spend $500 million on property, the odds are that you intend to get your way with what it is you want to do sooner or later. And that means that sooner rather than later, there's a really good chance that there's going to be a big-ass casino over here with all those resort towers that they included in their plan. And if you have a bunch of buildings here and whatever else is going on here, because there's already a bunch of condos behind the camera here, you got the Opera Tower and the 1800 Club and the Paramount and all these towers here along the water. This is going to be a huge concentration of buildings. Now, nothing wrong with that in and of itself. But what is wrong is this. The city of Miami currently doesn't have the infrastructure to accommodate all of this sudden change in this one little particular area of Miami. You know, it's going to take thousands of people coming to a casino every day to play slot machines for the Genting folks to get some of that $500 million back. And all of those people are going to have to get here some way. And all the people who live in these buildings and all the people who currently live in these other buildings, they're going to be out here on the streets. And we don't have streets large enough to accommodate this kind of traffic. More importantly, we got a huge problem with the sewer system in this county. And we're also facing a potential problem with flooding in this part of the country and in this state and along this waterfront here. So these are all issues that need to be factored in when you make a decision on whether or not to allow property to be rezoned from 24 to 36 stories in height. But I don't see that happening. And I think that that's something that folks need to start paying attention to. You know, oftentimes these issues get parceled out into little bits and pieces, and people fail to realize that this is part of a larger mosaic. And if somebody doesn't start talking and focusing on the larger mosaic, then these pieces become jagged and they become destructive to the other pieces in the mosaic. So this is my little tale of planning and zoning for the day, and I'm going to have to cut it short because even though it's October in Miami, it's starting to rain again. So until next time, as I always say, tell your friends, tell your family, tell your neighbors. You know I appreciate you coming, watching these videos, reading the stories. I'm getting a lot of feedback from a lot of folks who like these little videos, so I'm going to try to do them more and more and try to increase the production value. But until next time, before I drown, this is Al Crespo. Thank you.